let me know if you can hear me. Hey Brandon, good to see you again. Just let me know things are sounding okay. Same as last time, it's doing this thing where it's saying that there may be some buffering. It doesn't seem to be anything I can do about that, I'm afraid, so we'll just do what we can. So, I've prepared a little bit of something for this session, lesson, whatever we're going to call it, but as always, feel free to jump in with questions and stuff. Last time we did this, you requested In a Sentimental Mood, so that's what I've been working on, and yeah, we'll see what happens. On my Patreon, I'll have the chord melody that I'm going to be sort of talking you through. Yeah. Before we get to that, hey Kevin, how you doing? I wanted to talk quickly about this, and today we had this little exchange happen on the comments, and I just wanted to address it. In the comments, well, this has just crashed. Good. Can you hear me? I don't know what's going on. Anyway, well, I can't really read what this is saying anymore. So yeah, in the intro, I effectively I've been preparing for this role in a safari part, and I spent an extensive amount of time at Longleat Safari Park, and sort of just getting into the headspace of someone who's going through a safari. And I brought that character to the channel yesterday, and Jim, friend of the show, friend of the channel, Jim Cookson, said he's glad to see Michael J. Fox getting some work. And I think what Jim was trying to say there was he's glad to see someone really putting everything into a character and all that stuff. And Undercover Bus then lays out some insults here. You mean the bookish British guy, saying that I look exactly like a book, which I don't think is fair. He says I have a clean haircut, which he's obviously joking about because I haven't had a haircut since my grandma's funeral. Actually, even before that, my cousin's wedding, and a hat. And I think in the video I wasn't wearing a hat, so he's stitched himself up there. So levelled me with a bunch of insults, and it's just good to see that Jim's there to have my back. Right, anyway, that's enough of that. So, you can still hear me. Hopefully you saw that nonsense intro. And so yeah, let's start off with one question, and then hopefully I can start to play this in a sentimental mood thing. And yeah, so jump in with a question if you've got one, and then we'll get into what I've sort of prepared. Okay, in lieu of any questions, I don't know if you can still hear me, hopefully you can, but so In a Sentimental Mood, you guys asked me to take a look at in the middle of the last stream. How do I approach muting? Right, I'll get to that. And I hadn't heard the tune before, not to my recollection anyway, so I listened to Ella Fitzgerald, Chet Baker, and also more recently Michael Brecker, and a few of those different versions. So those are the ones that I'm sort of referencing, and Jonathan Kreisberg. I absolutely did not find a 1 amp 12 volt cable. Where do they even come from? So that's my reference for In a Sentimental Mood, which I'll play in a second, hopefully. Muting during fast runs. So I would think of it, Brandon, as a combination of factors. So I'm using sort of this part of the hand, like the fingers, underneath where I'm playing, and also this part of the hand above where I'm playing. So sort of imagine yourself semi-clamping down around the note that you're wanting. Yeah, Duke Ellington is the composer of the tune, or one of the composers. I'm not sure there's other lyricists involved, I think. But muting is more of an aim for me than something that I've mastered. There's bits and pieces that still slip through the net, as always. Did I get the gravity you sent through? No. What was that? When did you send that? No, where did you send that, Kevin? So, anyway. I was also asked, I think by K Love, or possibly Thomas Marks. Yeah, definitely Thomas. Whether I could talk about some triad stuff. And so what I've done is I've prepared a triad kind of study, if you like, around In a Sentimental Mood, and that's what I'm going to try and play through here as well as I can remember it. I may try and play the tune again and get rid of what I'm doing. Yeah, Bruce probably kept hold of it. But yeah, we'll see what happens. So this is a backing track that I put together for it, and we'll see how we get on. Let me know if you can't hear it. Hopefully you will be able to. Take off my glasses so that I don't get distracted. Okay, right. Hopefully that played. Did that work? Did you hear what I was doing? Give me some feedback, because it feels like I'm playing to no one and just getting nervous. So levels might be too high. Okay, that's annoying. I can't really control anything, unfortunately. Levels of what are too high, by the way? I can turn the backing track down slightly, and the helix down slightly. Hopefully that helps, and maybe the mic. Anyway, so yeah, that's my take on in a sentimental mood. Right, so let's just talk quickly. Here I've got the score. This is not my interpretation of it, this is from the real book. But so you see at the top there, here's the basic approach. Anyway, so you take your melody. Sorry. Here's the melody. It's in a fairly annoying kind of range. Either it's too low, which is a little bit too low once you start. So a basic kind of concept is that you probably want to keep the guitar stuff, the melody stuff, on these kind of top 3 strings, maybe, if you're going to be playing chords underneath. And so yeah, I think I explained this briefly earlier on in the week. So I'm making that kind of melody be the platform for everything, and then what I was doing is finding essentially the nearest triad that works for the chord that I'm trying to find. So I didn't actually do it with this particular sheet, but underneath that G, the first melody note, I'm wanting to place a D minor of some form, and for me that D minor triad in first inversion happens to be the closest thing, and then you've obviously got that kind of falling thing. So I was finding triads that worked for that. So a D minor major 7 could also be interpreted as an F augmented. So that's the triad that I'm using for that. And then the next D minor I hear more as kind of an F or D minor 7. And then the very last triad I hear as that G7. So just taking that very small section, I'm placing that triad. And then similar kind of idea here, but I'm working so that triad, it would be there, but since that's where I've got my melody note, it falls on a different string set. And then I hear that as an A7, not a C7, by the way, so that's why I'm playing an A7 in first inversion there, I think. Oh, that's actually an A7, so I'm not technically allowed to do that because that's not a triad, but that's what I was going for. And then again the D minor triad. So I'll put up on Patreon my actual workings for this if you like, but that's kind of how I would approach it. Can I read? What do you mean by read music? Or do you mean just read in general? Yes, I can read music. I played piano from the age of 5, so I had to read music for that stuff. I can't sight read particularly well at all, but so it does that stuff a few times, and then we move to the section in D flat, starting on bar whatever we're on. And then and then so I hear there being, certainly in the Michael Brecker version, they do like a A minor to D7, and then, so yeah, that's how I would tackle it if I was doing a thing with triads. So start off with your melody note and put your melody note onto these top strings, and then find your nearest triad. Most of the time you'll find it's probably not going to be a root version, I'd suggest, or maybe sometimes it will, but you know, so for like that D flat section it was. But just go for the closest triads. Hopefully that makes some sense, does it? Yeah, this goes onto the channel after the live stream, it doesn't get deleted or anything. For the A7 you could play a C sharp diminished triad, yes. I didn't actually put any diminished triads in here, but yeah, I mean I did. You've just spotted it. But yeah, that's a little tidbit of information. If you take a diminished triad and put it, so like say if you had a D7, a diminished triad built off the F sharp, the third, will give you the same notes, which is useful. But yeah, fire on some questions if you've got them. I think Thomas also wanted me to speak about sort of spread triads. So I don't know, you probably didn't necessarily hear it, but in the background during the solo I was comping with some spread triads. So say you've got a D minor triad, so you're traditionally going to have the root where the root is, and then your third, and then your fifth. So it's D minor, so we've got a flattened third and then a natural fifth. What we could do is jump the third up an octave, and you end up with these kind of things going on. So that's for sure worth checking out for comping, I think. So I'm going to put up a version, I guess like a comp sheet as well, just showing how I would go through the tune. It's not right though, is it? So this sheet that I'm looking at is kind of wrong, but that's fine. But yeah. That was something that I thought sounded kind of spacey. It's a bit of a more modern sound than you're probably used to. I don't know if modern's the word, but you don't necessarily hear loads of this kind of comping. Lage Lunde, I think is his name, or Lage Lund, does a bit of it. Then we need a C minor, then a D7, then G minor, and then where are we? C. So kind of tricky. But yeah, a comp sheet will go, yeah, exactly, a little bit of a Ted Green vibe. I think he generally used a few more notes. But yeah, this is Jazz Sunday, guys, so, you know, I'm jokingly going to say get with the program. But yeah, it's stuff that I can't, well, I can do a little bit of on the fly, but it is still kind of tricky to think about in some ways. But yeah, the spread triad thing, I'll put together a little kind of comp sheet of little pathways through the tune. The tricky thing with the triad thing, so these are not necessarily what I'd always go for, because if you think about it, if you've got a melody note, and then 3 other notes, you've only got 4 fingers, if that makes sense. So it can make for things that are a bit difficult, so like that. You end up with little voicings that might not be necessarily be natural, if that makes sense. As for the spread triad runs, yeah, I do a bit of them in my solos. But yeah, they can be useful. I think I use them more so as like a chord thing, particularly with a 9 instead of a 3rd. So, fire away with any further questions that you might have. I might try and do it without this triad thingy and just show you how I would play it if I wasn't playing something planned. Is that a good idea or not? Or you had enough of that? Let me know. I don't know, some of you may know that generally I don't particularly plan what I'm going to play. The goal was kind of to be spontaneous and stuff. So what I would do if I was wanting to get those into my playing is play them in scales. So that would be the first thing that I would try. So move them scale wise. That would be the way that I've practiced them anyway, and maybe write yourself little kind of tunes with it even. It's kind of tricky to move them around in large intervals, but stepwise stuff works quite nicely. What preset am I using? I'm using @updated jazz tone. But yeah, that's what I would practice. I'd also practice, so you know, like you've got your root on the D string here. Work on moving that root around to the other string, so you get a sense of how that triad looks on each of the different string sets. Right, fire away with more questions. I'm going to try and play the tune again and not embarrass myself. Yeah, let's see how we get on. Don't forget to like the video. I think that helps other people find us here. And yeah, let me know what you want me to cover for the rest of this. We've got another half an hour to go. We don't have to stay doing jazz if you don't want. Right, so that's a completely different, well, hopefully completely different interpretation. So those are all improvised. Nice look at my newest video because funny mouse. I'm not sure I'll be doing that, but yeah. These I think are settlers, Jason. Right, where are we at? I'm not touring right now. Looks like he's live streaming. Right, so any questions about any other stuff, do let me know. It's really cool that you've got a funny mouse, but I'm trying to talk about serious jazz stuff here, bro. I don't know if you've been to the channel before, but we take things deadly seriously over here. Thank you. I'll try to keep it up. How do I build a preset for jazz tones? It's a good idea to start with my presets for jazz tones. Oh dear, I just got rid of it. A jazz rivet with the drive down super low. Mondo generators. Triad pair runs like sax players. No, it's something I need to do a bit more. It's a cool idea, but maybe that's something that we could investigate. Johan doesn't have a point. Remember that there was the girl that she dropped in and said some stuff, not about a mouse. single line soloing strategy. So these are things that I don't work on as much as I work on the actual playing of the tune and the comping. I find once you've got a good grasp of what the melody is, it does kind of help with the bits and pieces. I'm getting distracted about this mouse stuff. Yeah, anyway, what was I saying? So yeah, and then working on things like arpeggios through a tune. Yeah, I keep the volume away from full as well, because clipping on a jazz style tone to me sounds gross. So I try to avoid any kind of digital clipping or gain at all clipping. Yeah. What else? Just a bit of reverb and delay. Generally, I don't find it. I think I've got a clone in parallel with this particular preset, but it's nothing particularly complicated. You can get in the description if you want to check it out. But that would be my advice. Okay, I'll promise you that we'll all go and check out your mouse video. Sounds like it's probably Jim. Right, any other questions about stuff that is un-mouse related? This is a D'Angelico. Yeah, the high end, roll the tone off the guitar, don't worry about the amp controls. You want the amp to be able to handle brightness. I would do it on the guitar, so anywhere around halfway to about 3, 2 can be good. It's tempting to roll all the way off, but generally I find that if I do that, when I go back and listen to it, it is just too muddy. So yeah, I wouldn't do that. Although it will sound good to you probably, when you listen to it back, it might sound a little bit too muddy. So you want to keep some of that in there. Dog's going mental again. Probably just seen the mouse video. Yeah, I wouldn't use the amp controls. I think you'll find that amp treble, the treble control on amps, particularly like Mesa Boogie amps, like I've got over there, they're kind of the most powerful thing next to the gain control. So generally I try to keep them at about midway, 12 or whatever. Jake, please don't swear at them. It's important to have mice people in this chat. So yeah, I guess we need to talk about triad pair runs. Thing is, I find them a little bit tricky on the guitar, but so the basic concept might be, so say you're in F or D minor, like we are, you find kind of triad pairs that fit within that key, so you could take B flat major and C major. It's kind of got that. So you can do it with like identical triad pairs, or pairs of triads, but also within the melodic minor scale you end up using unmatched ones. If I can try and find some. Although, actually, yeah. Let me think. Yeah, there's one. So let me go on to a freeze preset. Right, so say we've got an A7. If you've got the B flat melodic minor, bit of, in the middle of that you've got an E flat major triad and F major triad. So those are kind of triad pairs that you can use to use the melodic minor in a way that sounds a little bit more familiar, maybe. So what did I say again? E flat and F. You could do that kind of thing. Lenny, I've been taken over by sausages. This is Nemo, by the way, and he's about to get taken out. Oh, yeah, Elsa's also there. But yeah, any questions about other things?
You want them back?
Yeah, you can take him.
Come on. Oh, you're just getting more.
I'm acquiring more dogs as we speak.
Come on, out you come.
Beaver, out.
Come on, Eva. What's this? Okay, Mimi.
Come on, lad. Yeah, they're just sitting watching. Right, any other questions? Yeah, it's not a mouse, it's a dog. Butter dog. It's a sausage dog, not a butter dog.
Nemo, come here. Come. I'm too scared to go over that thing.
Get on, lad.
Come here.
Put butter on him. How many dogs do we have? We have 7 now. We did have 8. We now have less dogs. One of them died of old age. Jim, fire away with your question, buddy. Reharmonizer section. Oh, I could talk about something that I found Michael Brecker doing, which is kind of cool. Yeah, good question. Right, so hold on. They're all tiny dogs though. You can have some Nemo merch, you just have to pay for it off of Lenny. Right, so take Jim, what's your question? So you got that. Yeah, I think that would be a great idea to practice triad pairs with a drone chord. So if you're doing like that altered thing that I was doing, find your triad pair within that. So the major ones are always good because I guess major triads are the first things we learn. And then you can just find literally all over the place where you would do that sort of thing, and I think that can be a way to solve the kind of some of the problems of altered chords. Cheers. Be sure to check out those vids. Right. So what were we saying? We were saying about reharmonizing a bit of that. So generally, and yes, absolutely, Johnny Depp is still a viable lead, but the question is for what kind of roles, and that brings me to a point that I wanted to make. The word is that Tom Hardy is being considered as the next kind of James Bond, and I've been working on an impression for a while now, and here's my impression of Tom Hardy as James Bond. There you go. Fuzzy on what triad pair means. It's basically all it is putting 2 triads together, and I think they can sort of come from anywhere, but in the context of what we're talking about, it makes sense to pick pairs of triads that would naturally occur together. So say you were playing over like a C sus chord, that sort of thing, that kind of vibe is a set of triad pairs. So you're taking a B flat triad and a C triad and playing them kind of as a pair. And that's kind of what you're hearing there. and you obviously get, so generally I think what you do is you find either things that are apart, like that's a dissonant triad pair, so you've got a triad of a C major and then a triad, a tritone away, and you know, so you could do that. Well, I screwed up there, so what am I doing? I'm doing a C triad and then an F major triad, and so you get kind of interesting sounds from building up lines from these sorts of things, if that makes sense. Right, where was I? Sorry, Chase. So so there's one Michael Brecker thing, and it does this. So we're taking that top note. That was a super nice one. So what is it? You're doing like a B flat sus. No, that's a C sus. And then down to an A minor. So that would be one particular reharm that I found interesting. What else? Oh, there was one other super cool one. That one. I guess technically not on it. So. That one. Does that make sense? So like an F sharp 13 instead of the C. So that's a tritone sub. So that's an interesting harm or reharm, whatever you want to call it. But so there's this Michael Brecker mic. What are they called? I don't know. Steps Ahead, I think they were called. There's a few versions of that are worth checking out if you haven't. But I thought they sounded really cool. So I think I'm going to spend a bit more time on this tune even, and maybe put together like a little kind of reharm-ish version, maybe for next week or something, or maybe I'll try and play it on next week's live stream alongside another tune. But let me know, is this useful at all? Hopefully it is. But yeah, in the Michael Brecker stuff, that was where I found some really, really nice things. I think there was also one where he went to that like a C sharp kind of augmented, or a C sharp minor major 7 kind of vibe. And that was kind of cool. Right, so fire away any further questions you might have, chaps. anyone got other recommendations for jazz tunes that they want me to look at as well? Because this one was a really good one. I don't know if it's on any albums. There's live versions of it, Chase. So if you just search for around 1985 and 1986 in a sentimental mood, Brecker, there's like a few different live versions of him playing it with a guy playing it on a Moog synth. It's awesome. Nuage, I've done that tune before, and Nardis. I could do Nardis. Anything. Do I have a recommended listening list? No, not at all. I would say follow what you like. That's, for me, the only thing that I bother to do with jazz. There's a lot of jazz, and you'll probably find, if you're anything like me, there's a lot of jazz that you don't like. So for me, it's more a case of finding those things that I do like, and some of that is Chet Baker, some of that is Ella Fitzgerald. Places to start, I would say start with people like Keith Jarrett, Ella Fitzgerald. These are kind of my go-to things. Miles Davis is obviously a thing. Cannonball, Adderley, Charlie Parker. Modern guys, Jonathan Kreisberg, Gilad Hexelman, Billie Holiday's not one that I particularly have used, but you know, very much like Ella Fitzgerald in that singing those kind of standard tunes in a really musical way. Dizzy Gillespie, cool. Who else? Dave Brubeck, someone that I listen to. Bill Evans, obviously. Bill Evans, who's the Brazilian version. Esbjørn Svensson, I think that's how you spell it, I don't know for sure. Esbjørn Svensson Trio, kind of really accessible, kind of cool, jazzy stuff. Great player. Oh, Pat Metheny. But those are some kind of things where I get some inspiration from. It did make me think, actually. So, like, I don't know that Schofield fits into that kind of list necessarily. I mean, more of a fusion kind of edge to some of his stuff. I know there is some more straight ahead stuff, but I feel like probably what most people are going to end up finding from Schofield would be more bluesy, fusiony stuff. I could be completely wrong about that, but similarly there'd be like players like Mike Stern who sort of are on that kind of bridge of some of this stuff, but I'm primarily thinking about standards playing, I guess. There is some Schofield standards playing, isn't there? I don't know if there's more live stuff than recorded, maybe. I don't know. I don't know much about Schofield, to be fair, so I could be talking complete nonsense. Yeah, if we're going to go for fusiony stuff, then Alan Holdsworth, and then he wins. But yeah, there are, you can find stuff like of those people. Yeah, checking out jazz standards, so you might want to go through someone like Victor Baker tunes, and find your way through in that kind of way. So find a jazz standard that you like, and then find out who wrote that, and then go through their kind of catalogue of tunes. I think that's a good way. Yeah, Barney Kessel, Jim Hall, I guess, as well. that kind of era. So you might choose to go back through like a catalogue of a particular composer, and I think that's a valid way of doing things. I kind of think of it like, how would you, say you're watching a film and you need to pick a next film to look at, you could think about maybe going with something by the same director, or you could think about going with through something with the same kind of actors or something. So, you know, you might go through a bunch of Nicolas Cage films until you realise that they're all kind of awful. Or you might go through a bunch of Daniel Day-Lewis films and you find they're all kind of absolutely seminal. Some of them some of the finest bits of cinema that you've ever seen. And then, you know, that might take you down a Paul Thomas Anderson route, you know, the director, and you might watch a few more Paul Thomas Anderson films until you find something that, you know, Philip Seymour Hoffman was in, and, you know, then you might end up watching a few more Philip Seymour Hoffman films. But what I'm trying to say is that there's a kind of natural path that you'll find through this stuff, probably. But it's a good thing to find your own way through it all, I think. Pat Metheny, again, a really good starting point, I think. Yeah. I guess, but also a thing to say about Pat Metheny is that it seems to be not so much standards playing, although there is some that you can find of his live bits and pieces, but he's also a composer, so in terms of going back through the jazz catalogue, it's not necessarily the most useful way. But people like Ella Fitzgerald and all those other people that we've mentioned above do kind of go through the actual jazz canon, if you like. Yeah, I wouldn't recommend just listening to modern interpretations. I think it makes sense to go back to kind of hearing people actually sing the song. Yeah, I would go back to hear someone sing the song originally, if it is a piece with lyrics, and then move from there onwards, rather than finding a super modern version of it. That's generally what I find works better for me, because I'm getting to hear it closer to what was intended, whereas, you know, people do interesting jazz hip hop vibe in the 90s. Are you talking about like neo soul, like D'Angelo? I'm not sure that that's a particularly good way into jazz, because the neo soul thing seems to be more kind of vamp based than actual jazz music based, if that's who we're thinking of, but it might not be. And also in the 90s there started to become more of this kind of thing of just moving things around, and that's not for me exactly what jazz was about. Chill hop. What's my approach to chord voicings? I've talked about this kind of a bit more than anything. I'm thinking about kind of the melody, and then trying to place some kind of key notes around it, so sort of shell voicing as an approach, or something like that. So yeah, that'd be my approach to chord voicings. I've said kind of a bunch of times, like, use them, otherwise you'll tend to just lose them, was the thing. What about Ronnie Jordan? So that's kind of a smoother jazz vibe, right? I think, isn't he the guy that did the Maybe. I mean, maybe like George Benson, that kind of thing might be a way in. Again, it's possibly a little bit far away from the source, but if you like the stuff, then it's no reason why you couldn't. No reason that you shouldn't be listening to it. Just listen to what you like. Yeah. Yeah. So what? That's what I was vaguely playing there. Again, I'd say that's maybe smoothish jazz, right? I guess that'd be fair to say. I think you probably get some people that are kind of snobbish about that, but if you like it, there's no reason that you shouldn't like it. And I think there's plenty of awful jazz out there and plenty of stuff that sounds way worse to me than that. So if you like it, then listen to it. There's also some great George Benson stuff, and I'd say that's kind of in a similar vibe to that Ronnie Jordan stuff. And I think George Benson was probably the first person I heard kind of using altered licks, and that kind of caught my ear, and in a way that kind of is what got me into Pat Metheny and stuff like that a little bit, I think. So there's definitely something to be said for those kind of players for sure. Etc. Affirmation. Is this one I should be looking into? Probably. Right. So unless we have any further questions, maybe affirmation is the one that I do next then. Hopefully this was vaguely interesting and sort of helpful. But I think if you go into like the ballady stuff, instead of, so skip the kind of Tom Ibarra, I think I've seen in a couple of Ibanez demos, young guy. Yeah, skip the kind of crazy synth era and skip kind of the free jazz stuff. Go back to like the 40s and 50s, and I think you'll find that stuff is pretty palatable, and maybe like into the 60s. The fusion kind of era of jazz is not particularly useful, I don't think, in terms of learning what jazz is. You know, like there's a whole period where Miles Davis is messing around with kind of brass synth patches. I don't think that stuff is worth necessarily thinking about too much. But like the bebop stuff, I think if you go back to kind of Ella Fitzgerald, Chet Baker and those people, I think you get plenty out of that, and it's kind of just good solid tunes. And then solos, I think that stuff's super accessible. Bill Frisell, I've not checked out too much stuff. But yeah, right, I'm going to put up on the... Yeah, well, that's kind of the big band stuff is, you know, Frank Sinatra has sung many of the standards that everyone plays. And so for me, again, Frank Sinatra would be one of those people, if I'm playing a tune, I'll be sure to check out a version. If I can't find Chet Baker, Peggy Lee or Ella Fitzgerald version, I'll check out a Frank Sinatra version. But yeah, I think you'll also find that that's kind of where some of the interesting harmony stuff came from. It's from the bigger arrangements, so string bands and all these sorts of things. Not string bands, that's not what I'm trying to say, but like string orchestras and brass orchestras. That's kind of where the chewy dense harmony kind of comes from. For me anyway, that's where I think it came from, like in the 30s and 40s and stuff. It's kind of all there. Who's the other guy that I'm thinking of? The guy who wrote Laura, the tune. Laura. David Raskin, for instance. All of that dense kind of jazz harmony and all that language is in the actual original scored versions of those tunes. So I think it makes sense to go right back to those and check those out. Right, I need to upload the backing tracks. Are we looking at Affirmation next week then? Should we decide that? I've not heard the tune, but I'll check it out and let's see if I can do anything with it. And I'll also try and do some reharmonization-y stuff on this one, if I can. But yeah, I'll put the score up on Patreon, or my chord melody thing, and I'm also going to do some spread triad voicings. Harry Connick Jr. did a version of Do Nothing Till You Hear From Me, which I used for that week where I was learning that tune. Seems really decent. I think he's fairly well respected as well. I've not heard tons and tons of his stuff though, but yeah, I used that tune, or used Harry Connick Jr.'s version for reference. But yeah, let me know if this was awful, but I'll put up on Patreon now the backing tracks. And yeah, Affirmation I guess we can cover next time. Right, thank you everyone for stopping by, and hopefully we got through this okay without too many hitches. Thank you everyone for leaving questions and getting involved. Yeah, catch you in a minute, Jake. And cheers Johan, cheers Jason, cheers Chase, cheers Brandon, cheers Bullgod. Who else we got? Thomas, thanks very much as always. K-Love, cheers. Simon, who else we got? We got the guys that talked about mice. Remember that, the mice talk. Jim, you seem to have gone back to work. That's a shame, but you've got stuff to watch in here. Yeah. Ooh, what am I looking at another time, Thomas? There's a Pat Metheny tune in all spread triads. Yeah, we'll take a look at that. So spread triads is another thing that I'll look at. We've got to do some more triad talk, but Thomas, you're being super helpful with signposting me to things to talk about. So yeah, spread triads we'll do next, and then triad pairs I guess we can talk about. I also want to talk a little bit about the use of the diminished and augmented triads, because they do have their uses. So yeah, but thank you for stopping by, and I'll catch you in a bit. Cheers.